What's up?
Yep.
Grant, can you hear us?
Morning, yes, sir. How is everyone?
Morning, Grant. Thanks for joining today.
Morning.
So
Thank you for having me.
let's get started. First is the minutes from our March 8th meeting. Does anyone have looked at those? Any changes or edits that are required? If none, will someone make a motion to accept? Sue?
Second.
Save with Dave. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Full budget report, which is attached to your agenda. The last two pages. On the budget report overall for the IDA, investment earnings last month. Hey, Joe.
Morning, guys.
162.81 on the expenditure side, salary and disability insurance, the quarterly payment that has to be made. Under Tryon Technology Park, there was expenditures of $16,500, which we'll go through on the next page. Monthly expense for work on the ID's website of $13.62. If we flip to the last page, it's a breakdown of the $16,500 for Tryon. The first was $3,300, which was our semi-annual insurance payment for liability insurance. Second, it was $141.81, which was the monthly fee for electricity at the wastewater pump station. Then we had the balance of payment to CT Mail for their work at preparing the Tryon infrastructure drawings. And then there was a progress payment made to Environmental Design Partnership for $11.2 for their work preparing design plans and bid specifications for the Tryon backup generator project. And lastly, payment of $82.84 for advertising for bids for the Tryon backup generator project, for a total of $16,500.39 of total expenditures for the month. That is the budget report. Any questions?
And the 9-year insurance, is that what it finally came down to? That's the
Yes.
revised base, so it's
Yep.
going to be $6,600.
That's correct.
Great.
Versus budgeted at $9.
Good.
Yep.
There we go. Then you out of the park then.
Correct. It should be. Can someone make a motion to accept the budget report, please?
I'll make a motion, Jim.
Mike, is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Greg. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Monthly bank reconciliation. Todd, you had the pleasure of reviewing those this month. How'd they look?
I did. I reviewed the money market account, the checking account, and the Johnstown account that Carol sent out, and all appeared to be in order.
Very good. Our monthly reports, Jack Wilson, who is the new liaison to the IDA from the county's Economic Development Committee. Unfortunately, he's not here this morning, so we'll move on to Grant. Grant, CRG report.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So yeah, just go over a few things that have been going on in our world.
Report is attached to your agenda.
Yeah. So we do have quite a few updates on the business marketing and business inquiries. For several months now, we've been in discussions with an out-of-state glove sewing operation that continues. Those discussions continue. Hopefully we can come to an agreement here fairly soon on that. Working on some financial aid packages for a group of investors looking at a building in Johnstown for industrial purposes. There's a possible project that's in development in Caroga Lake, so that's exciting. Working with a local Johnstown business and the mayor about a possible business expansion of an existing business in town. So we'll keep you updated on that. FJ&G thoroughfare planning meetings are still proceeding along. I'm sure you've heard a little bit about that. So that'll be a great project for the area here. Global Foundries, we've got a tour. Jim and all, I'm not sure if you guys, I'm sure you did get an invitation. Hopefully you did. There's a tour date set up.
I've circulated that to everybody.
Okay, great. So yeah, that tour date's right now scheduled for the 21st. So if you are interested, I know that schedules or the space is limited, so please get that in quickly. Fulton County Site Inventory Initiative, just reminding the committee that we'll have a presentation by those consultants at the April 27th County E&E Committee meeting. The EPA Brownfield Grant Task Force has had its second meeting. So we'll continue on with that. Mohawk Valley Brownfield Summit, the 6-county program is scheduled for April 12th and 13th at FMCC. And there's a link to that if you would like to participate. CRG is still participating on the Mohawk Valley Economic Development CEDS Committee, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. There's so many acronyms here. The CEDS is now in draft form and being reviewed to finalize. Our micro enterprise grant program. We have sent a request for permission to ask the state for another micro enterprise grant. That program has been extremely successful for a lot of local businesses here and startups. So hopefully the state will allow us to continue on. The 2021 Micro Enterprise CARES Act grant program that continues to be rolled out. So more to follow on that. Community development marketing in Gloversville. We do have the Gloversville Downtown Revitalization Initiative Planning Committee has had their second meeting. There's many ongoing activities with the city of Gloversville, like the local waterfront revitalization program. And the Kearney Group has closed on the purchase of 52 Church Street, so we are glad to have that behind us. Northville, continuing to look at some opportunities within Northville, as well as Caroga Lake. And I think that's all I've got, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions of Grant?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's first I've heard the FJ&G Thoroughfare Planning Meeting. What is that all about?
Yeah, so that's something that James Hannes is involved in pretty heavily. Basically, they're looking to do a, I guess, a fair along the FJ&G rail trail, specifically within Gloversville. So that's just in its kind of planning phases. They're looking to do that, I believe, this summer, if my memory serves me right. So again, it's kind of a way to showcase that, you know, that thing as well as other local businesses.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yep.
What's FJ&G?
On to Johnstown, Gloversville.
Yeah, sorry, it's the rail trail.
Rail trail.
I didn't know if that was a specific piece of it or whatever, it's just
No,
the whole thing.
It's the whole
Okay.
thing.
I use it a lot.
Yes.
Yep.
Grant, I've got a quick question on the sewing company. Is that supposed to be coming into your building, the CRG, or can't you say, or don't you know?
I'm sorry, which business was that?
The glove sewing business.
You know what? I don't, from what I've heard, I don't believe that's the case, that they'd be coming into our location. It sounds like it'd be downtown Gloversville on Main Street.
Good, okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Grant.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to old business. This is Nexus Renewables. Nothing new to report other than they continue to try to find ways to reduce their project costs so that they can move forward with that solar project. Burial Health, the construction continues to ongoing. If you've been out there recently, all the concrete panel walls are for the most part up. Roof is up, and construction progresses along. Huffman Car Wash, if you drive by that, construction's ongoing there. Looking at the summer completion for that particular project. Moving on to page 3 of our agenda under Winstanley Enterprises. The agreement between Winstanley and the county regarding domain names has been executed, and those domain names have been officially transferred over to Winstanley. The boundary survey has been revised. And it now seems to be complete, and it's verified that the exact acreage that is going to be transferred is 239 acres, not 236. The 90-day notice that we sent to New York State regarding this negotiated sale, the 90-day time period ends today. We've not heard anything from them, and if we don't by the end of today, that would clear our ability to go ahead and sell that land to Winstanley. And lastly, a couple weeks ago, I did a presentation to the Town of Perth Planning Board of Winstanley's overall concept plan for Tryon, because that was the first time that the planning board had actually seen the grand vision that Winstanley has. And that was fairly well received by the planning board, and could see some really neat things there. So other than that, that's where we are with Winstanley. Related to Winstanley, item E is a marketing agreement with Cushman Wakefield. 2 years ago, we executed that marketing agreement with them. It was a 2-year agreement that expires tomorrow. But since we are now transitioning over to Winstanley, who's going to take all that property, I don't think there's a need for us to renew the agreement with Cushman Wakefield, since all the marketing for that property is going to be handled through Winstanley. So is there a consensus that that's the case, that we don't need to have Cushman Wakefield around anymore? Okay. Moving on to item F.
Before we move on.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any concerns with Virgo not executing on the pilot yet? I know they're going
No.
through some
What?
ownership changes.
No.
Okay.
I have a Zoom meeting today with their attorney. I have been harassing the attorney and the CEO to try to get this done. They're swamped with this whole acquisition with Verano and stuff, so, but everything they've been saying is it's gonna happen. It's just trying to get Verano involved, getting them up to speed. So as of right now, we fully expect that they're gonna complete those documents. Fulton County Sewer District number 4, several items to talk about here today. First is the bids on the backup generator. Bids were received last week, and we received 5 bids. The summary of those are shown there. The bid was set up where we asked for a base bid for the total cost to purchase and install the generator and automatic transfer switch. And then we asked the contractors to include a $5,000 contingency allowance. We put money right into their contract in the event that there is something that comes up during the course of construction that's unexpected, that results in a quote unquote change order. We would, be able to pay for that right out of the allowance. And at the end of the project, if there's dollars left over in that allowance, they would get credited back by change order coming back to the IDA. So they wouldn't keep that money forever. So Coval Contracting was the low bidder with a total bid of $78,200. Variable Design Partnership has reviewed all the bids and has submitted a letter which is attached to your agenda, recommending that a contract be awarded to Coval Contracting in that amount of $78,200.
At least the bottom 3 were within proximity to one another.
Any thoughts of why it's low?
This happens quite often, Joe, where some contractors aren't really interested in the project
Mhm.
and throw in a
Uh-huh.
number,
Yeah.
and if they get it,
Great.
they're gonna do well.
Mhm.
So that's in all likelihood with those. bottom two.
Contractors are very busy now,
Yes.
so they've been adding margin to their bids.
And that certainly could be the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
factor here.
Well, yeah, I would say Harold Clune threw a number at the wall and he didn't want it really.
Right.
But if you got it.
But if you got it, he'd be thrilled.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, you'd be paying for
well, true, well.
So-
No, we would not be paying that price.
it. So, I mean, obviously the bids were reviewed, but I have a little concern that Coval was significantly lower.
And what we do Sue, what I do, since I've been here, I ask that low bidder to review his bid and to give something to me in writing that says, I have reviewed my bid in comparison to the others, and I am still comfortable with my bid.
Okay.
And we have received that from Cobalt.
Okay.
Environmental Design Partnership has had that conversation with him also. The owner of the company came and met with Travis Mitchell and said, I am comfortable with my bid.
Okay.
Okay, and we have it in writing stating such.
Okay.
Okay. If someone's willing, I'd ask for a motion to authorize the chairman to execute a contract with Cobalt Contracting in amount of 78.2. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
When this was put out to bid,
Mhm.
was there anything, did anything come back about leasing? I didn't see what the bid package was, but originally
Yes, and
we
I,
had mentioned
Mike had raised that question.
about
And
leasing.
We didn't do that because no one said that they would do that.
Okay.
When Travis reached out to some of these, before we put it out to bid, none of them, they all said that they've never done that before. And wouldn't bid it that way.
Okay.
Okay, but since Mike had communicated that, or raised that question, I communicated back to Mike, and advised him that that's what the research had shown.
I know the board said to try and give alternatives.
Yep. But that's just the bidders that Travis spoke to, potential bidders, all said that they don't, they've never done that before.
Okay. What is the lead time on this?
Approximately 6 months.
Okay.
Okay, so if we award the contract today, it's probably gonna be fall before this is done.
Completed or?
Yes,
When are we thinking of turning over this to the district?
probably around then. Because as we're gonna see in a minute, we've got to do this 90-day notice for also, okay? Anything else? Okay, no.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Greg.
I'll second.
Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? Say no. Motion carried. Next item, with respect to the generator, it's going to run on natural gas. Been in touch, Travis has been in touch with National Grid. National Grid has advised that they will install this gas line, and it's going to be a fully chargeable expense. They've estimated that cost to be between $5,000 and $10,000, but they said it could be a little bit more. And so the way we've arranged this is for National Grid to actually perform the work and invoice the IDA directly, as opposed to going through Cobalt. Because if it goes through Cobalt, what is Cobalt going to do? They're going to mark it up 15%, and we're going to pay that extra 15%. So that is going to be an additional cost. And as I mentioned in my email to everyone, when we first talked about this project, I mentioned that we had an estimate from CT Mail that this total project could be anywhere from 125 to 150. Well, given where these numbers have fallen, with 78.2 for the construction, 10,000 approximately for grid, and 16,000 is what we've paid Environmental Design Partnership, we're looking at a total cost of around $104,200. So we're still at the low end of where we were projecting this to be. And again, that 104,000 may, there's the unknown of National Grid's bill, and that's including that contingency allowance. And if we don't use it, it'll be somewhat less.
So just also to pile on here a little bit, there's been issues with electrical equipment of late, and I would also leave the potential open that we could get notification after signing the contract that pricing from the supplier and delivery times from the supplier will change. And at that
Today's
point,
market, right?
it's going back out to bid is not going to be favorable for any of that. So I think we need to be ready to accept that as a condition of this project.
Understood. you know, today's market, unfortunately, that's what's happening,
Yeah,
you know.
Is this bid based on, did it have a timeframe as to?
Yes, there was a certain number of days that the contractor had once the unit was delivered.
I mean, as for him locking in his price. Who's guaranteeing his price? Is Dave saying?
typically, if he's ready to sign a contract, it's guaranteed. But that does not mean that the supplier won't come back to him. And even though he signed a contract, I had on this project here in town, a situation where some of the electrical equipment was ordered. The manufacturer had committed to a 4-month lead time. It was supposed to be delivered 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks prior, the manufacturer reached out and said, we can't deliver on time. It's going to be an extra 5 months. So in order to try to make up that time with a manufacturer that had it in stock, the price was going to double. So, and no contractor's going to stand behind that and say, yeah, I'll just eat that cost. None of them will. So that's why I said we need to be ready to move laterally if we need to.
So if it does come back. Bad situation, then we have to vote on it.
Absolutely.
We're
Yeah,
not,
right.
you know,
Right.
Correct.
locked into this price.
Um,
$100,000.
The only person who attended the bid opening was Tom Colwell, the owner of the company, who was the low bidder. And he deals with Generac. That is the manufacturer that he's going to be supplying, and they were one of the approved manufacturers to use. He appeared to be very confident that he would be able to get that at the price he bid it for.
Is he local?
They're on Waterford. Okay, moving on to the bottom of the page. The survey work, at the last meeting, you authorized Ferguson and Foss to complete survey work on 3 parcels of land at Tryon at a cost not to exceed $5,000. The 3 parcels were the 2 parcels that were going to go to sewer district number 4, and the 1 parcel that Randy Lot Holdings had kind of expressed an interest in. The issue is we haven't started that survey work, and it's all tied to Randy Lott's due diligence on the piece of land that he wants to purchase. Scott, can you put that up here for a second? The 2 parcels that we're looking to go to the sewer district is this 1 parcel here. And then everything inside of here minus the parcel we've already deeded to Randy Lott. Randy Lott has an interest in additional piece in here. Okay, the challenge is this is the wetland here. And so there's this piece here that is outside of the wetland, and he's trying to maximize the amount of land to purchase that he can develop. So he's been working with the Soil and Water Conservation District to go out here and flag this wetland boundary. And he has come up with an idea of being able to carve into this wetland a little bit, and so that he could get a bigger piece of developable property. But he's reached out to Army Corps to say, if I did this and use these couple of acres here of wetlands, can I trade it off and move the wetlands over here someplace?
How much of the wetlands is going to be impacted by doing that?
Not much, an
Because if
acre or
it's
so.
Oh, it's really an acre?
Yeah, in here, well, this whole piece here is about 20 acres. So he has some drawings,
Okay.
and right now, he's not officially going to Army Corps and getting an official answer. He's simply reaching out to them and say, conceptually, would you be willing to look at this? Because if he can get them to trade wetlands, he says he might be interested in purchasing up to 15 acres. If he can't do that trade, it might be less, it might be half of that. So I'm waiting for him to make that final call, because that will define the parcel that Ferguson and Foss would need to survey and come up with a meets and bounds description for what we would be selling to him. The balance would be the meets and bounds description that we would be transferring to the sewer district. So we're simply in a holding pattern until he gets some feedback from Army Corps on whether they would be willing to do an exchange like that or not. Okay? Did you? You heard it, you read it.
No,
Yeah.
didn't have to work, but he said he is pursuing that. He doesn't do more like 7 acres or so.
That's-
we have, but this, he did say, you know, he was trying to get, I remember you said he spoke with you and trying to get where it was by today's meeting, and I said, you know, we were just trying, because we do have a meeting, and he said, I understand that, but he thinks he's not just sitting there, not trying to, and you understand that, and I understand that, so.
Yep.
He said he will get a number to us or a acreage to us so we can figure that out as quick as possible.
And I have spoken with Chris Foss. He knows why we haven't, because I told him a month ago that we would give him the authorization to proceed right away on 2 parcels. So he's just waiting to hear from myself on the 3 parcels, and then he'll get out there and get the survey work done.
Can he do, will he just do it all at one
Yes.
time or?
Yes.
So everyone could do that one section, which is.
Correct, and that's what I don't want him to do. I don't want to send him out there. Okay.
Jim, would it hurt or help things if we just said that Randy could buy 15 acres? Realizing that that 8 of them may be in wetlands and will not be developable, nor could we develop them ever either ourselves. You know, and basically sell them 7 acres and give them 8 acres for free because they're not developable. Would that help his situation?
I don't think so, because I think at our last meeting, you agreed to sell him whatever he wanted to take. The issue is he's trying to figure out what he wants to take based upon what he can reasonably develop or not.
Okay.
So I think unless I misinterpreted what this group said last month, but when we talked about Randy Lott having an interest, you basically said, yes, we'll sell him whatever he wants.
If I understood, he's not interested in actually holding any of the wetlands. He just wants pure land that he can develop.
The
That's
issue,
his,
the issue you get with wetlands is if you ever mortgage anything, you've got to do a flood determination.
Mhm.
If, say if you got a 50-acre parcel and 1 acre is in a flood zone, you've got to get flood insurance.
Well, the
And
flood
flood
zone is
insurance-
different than a wetland. though.
Right.
Right, but it could potentially, I know it's different,
Yeah.
but
It's not
Those
in a
maps
flood
are
zone.
funny
That-
looking.
That much we clarify,
Okay.
it's not in a flood zone. He would be interested in wetlands for one reason. When you look at the town zoning ordinance
Mhm.
for maximum lot development
Yeah.
ratio, that would be his interest.
Yeah.
So if he could get a bigger lot that includes 2 or 3 acres of wetlands,
Mhm.
he could put up a bigger building, you know, based upon the maximum
Yeah.
lot development ratio, knowing that he's never gonna develop.
Right.
that piece.
Well, I think that's where his question kind of comes into play, is instead of waiting for him to narrow it down to 7 acres or whatever, we just say, we'll negotiate the 15 acres for a decent price that would really only have the meat and potatoes of the 7 acres. That kind of makes it advantageous for him to take the 15 now and figure it out on his end, and we can get it off our plate.
Maybe, but he's pretty close. I'm hoping to hear something in a few days.
Okay.
What the final, what his final answer is. He's been working at this for a month now, right? And he's right at the end.
Okay.
So,
It's not gonna be like 2 months time.
Yeah.
He's still trying to figure it out.
okay. Appraisal, for, transferring the, land to, the sewer district and for this piece to Randy Lott. The law requires us to have an appraisal done. Received the quote from Mark Grant from CBRE, who's done previous commercial appraisals out there, a fee of $3,500. His appraisal is going to identify a price per acre for this land so that we can apply that to the 3 different parcels to come up with what the actual value is for those 3 separate parcels. So asking for a motion to authorize the chairman to execute an assignment agreement with CBRE at a cost not to exceed $3,500.
Question before we
Yes,
do
sir.
that. I know later in our meeting, we're gonna look at those revised language.
Yep.
So when I was reading through it the other day, talking about the transfer of assets, it says that we can transfer if it's to a government or other public entity, and the terms and conditions of the transfer require the ownership and use of the asset will remain with the government or any other public entity. So we're gonna transfer 2 parcels to the sewer district. Do we care what their value is?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
first
the
part,
first part
there's
says,
a very first part that says, before you can transfer anything, you need an appraisal.
Okay,
yes,
Then there's like certain, that exception is an exception, one of them, the transfer to a governmental entity is, because what this law wants, I don't know if it wants, but what it primarily says is all sales need to be done by competitive bids. You have to put this property out for competitive bid. It doesn't really make sense in that, for any of our sales to go out in that way. So one of the exceptions is you don't have to competitively bid if you're transferring to a governmental entity. You don't have to competitively bid if it's there's an economic benefit, which is what we traditionally use for our sales. Now, in this case, we can use the governmental entity, but the first section of this law says, first you have to get an appraisal.
okay.
and the other reason you have to get an appraisal is tied to this 90-day notice.
Yeah.
Okay, because as we're gonna talk after we do this motion, we're gonna say, if you're gonna sell or transfer a piece of real property that's valued at 100,000 or more, you've got to do this 90-day notice to the state. If you're gonna transfer personal property valued at 15,000 or more, you got to do this 90-day notice to the state. So to determine whether you hit that $100,000 threshold for real property, you got to have the appraisal.
Okay.
Which is why in this instance, we're having it done on a per acre basis, so we can apply it to those, what those 2 acreages are.
Okay.
All right, motion to hire CBRE at a cost of $3,500. Can someone make that, please? Joe? Thank you,
I'll
Joe.
second it.
Joe Gillis, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? To this 90-day notice, as I just explained, we know that we will have to do a 90-day notice for the part out of personal property, because we're going to be transferring to the sewer district, the pump station and this new generator. And the combined value of those two will well far exceed the $15,000 threshold. Once that appraisal comes back, we'll know what it will determine the value of the real property to be. And if it's over 100, then this 90-day notice will cite both reasons. If it's under 100,000, the 90-day notice will just reference that we'll be transferring personal property valued at over 15,000. That appraisal probably won't be done till the end of May. Okay, so that 90-day notice will probably go out at the end of May, end of June, end of July, end of August is probably the earliest where we're going to be able to complete that transfer to the sewer district. Okay. Okay. With that, on the top of page 6, the actual creation of the district is ongoing. The Board of Supervisors held its public hearing, and they will be acting on the order to create the district on at their May 9th board meeting. In order for us to transfer the ownership of the sewer infrastructure to the district, we'll have to take 2 actions: to authorize the chairman to execute a bill of sale and to authorize the chairman to execute 2 deeds. And we'll probably have to take care of that formally at our August meeting. Okay. Alrighty, moving on to new business. Lawn mowing quotes. We received 3 quotes that are listed here. The total quote of the low quote was from Jim Esper Landscaping at a cost of $6,340. As you can see, the history of how much we have spent, how it's varied over the years. So it's pretty consistent with what we've incurred for the last couple of years. Like we did last year, once we determined who the low quote was, we asked them for a price to go out and weed around our entrance sign and put new mulch down. Jim Esper gave us a quote of $500, and I'm recommending that we add that to his low bid, so that the total price would be $6,840 for providing lawn mowing services and weed mulching around the entrance side. I sent all of this information to Winstanley, and Adam Winstanley has confirmed that we pay this, invoice him at the end of the year, and he will reimburse us this total cost.
This evergreen has a lot of fuel costs.
It was funny, I talked with Chris, he called me to say that he wasn't going to quote initially. He was struggling to find help, and to be able to do this, he was going to have to pay some exorbitant hourly rates to give people. And I said, Chris, I said, listen, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I, understood, but so he ended up still submitting a quote, but the impacts of what he was going to have to pay was reflected in what his price was. So.
And this is locked in for the summer, even if gas prices
correct.
continue to inflate.
That is correct.
Sure.
Hopefully they start to deflate.
Well, that would be nice, but
Yep, no, this is locked in, so.
Okay.
Would someone be willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Todd, thank you, Todd.
I should probably abstain because I work with Mr. Esper.
Okay.
You were in the gray area, Joe.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All opposed. So we have a 6-0-1 vote. Okay. Paris reporting, just to let you know that the Paris report has been filed. In case any of you have any particular interest, just to show you what we file each year within Paris. That's the Paris report for 2021.
what does the acronym stand for?
Public Authorities Reporting Information System. It's not France. It's we are required to file 4 reports by the end of the first quarter each year. Sue, that's what that document is.
Okay.
And again, it's no easy going. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And then in the fall of each year, we have to submit a budget report. This Paris system is basically an online database that anyone can access and go and see our these reports. It's been around since what, 2007? The Public Authorities Accountability Act was put in place. So it's just an annual thing, but I thought everybody would just,
Memorize it.
want to see this tiny little thing. that we do. Last thing under board training, 2 things. Each year, Site Selection Magazine publishes the results of an annual survey it does with corporate site selectors. And I thought some of the findings of this month's or this year's survey would be of interest. Based on the input received from corporate site selectors, the top 5 most active industry sectors in the United States are 1, distribution, logistics, advanced manufacturing. And if you recall, in our discussions with Adam Winstanley, in terms of his company's interest in Tryon, he has pointed to those 2 industry sectors as the 2 that he thinks are the best fits for Tryon. And they just also happen to be the most active industry clusters ongoing. And the last thing on the top of the next page, it says the most common deal breakers identified by the site selection was government mismanagement of projects. And these were some of the quotes that were given by some corporate site selectors. And I think you look at number 3 through 7. cumbersome, slow, unclear process and procedures when dealing with state and local economic development officials, delay of permitting, over-regulation by government, red tape and unresponsive government, inability to meet the need for time to market. And when you look at those 5 and you say, what do we do? Those are our strengths in terms of our ability to process and get permitting done quickly, search seeker done quickly, and our responsiveness to companies' needs. I think that bodes well for what we do well is exactly what they're saying they're finding, having problems with elsewhere. So for what that was worth, the last thing is our property disposition policy. Because we're dealing with it here with some of these transactions, I sent this out to everybody. A copy here is attached to your agenda. And all I did was compare the specific language that's in our policy today with the section of 2897 of New York State's Public Authority Law, which contains all of the requirements that IDAs must follow when disposing of property. And there were a few tinkers that we needed to make based upon some changes that were made to the Public Authorities Law since the last time we looked at our policy. And so the edits that I proposed are highlighted in red as on this attached. There's nothing substantive, but it does bring it into 100% compliance with section 2897 of New York State's Public Authorities Law. And Mike, if you look on the first page of this policy, are we on the first page?
Mhm.
If you look under C, method of disposition, if you go into the middle where the red highlights are crossed through and it says provided, however, that no disposition of real property or any interest in real property shall be made unless an appraisal of the value of such property has been made by an independent appraiser. That's what the reference Carol was
Okay.
making right at the beginning.
Yep.
Any disposition has to be an appraisal. Then there's some of these exceptions
Mhm.
that go on along the way. But that's why every time we dispose of a piece of property, we have to have an appraisal done. Okay? Sarah, did you see anything in there?
No, I looked at it earlier. I just got it lined up with the
Yes.
statute, yeah.
Ask you about how these things came about, you were just taking them from what the state does, and just plugging them in, then.
But we were talking about going back and forth about this particular issue,
Right.
so,
And so, yes, and
and I think you guys looked at it.
I try to pick up a policy every once in a while, just look at it and compare it to the requirements either from law or from the ABO, who publishes best practices and guidance, just to make sure that we are up to date on all of our policies. But when we were dealing with this particular transaction, I went and looked at this policy, and that's where I noticed that there were some minor tweaks that needed to be made. So what I'm asking for is a motion to approve this amended policy as presented. Correct? Is there a second to that motion, Sue? Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, I'd like to ask for an executive session for the reasons stated in the agenda regarding proposed acquisition or sale of real property.
Make that motion.
One second.
Dave, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are going into executive session as of 8:45 a.m. Do I have a motion to close the meeting? Sue, thank you, Sue. Second, Greg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion is carried. The meeting has adjourned. Thank you, folks.